This program is made possible in part by New Mexico Arts, a division of the Department of Cultural Affairs, and the National Endowment for the Arts.
Inspired by nature, Timothy Horn's artworks reinvent scale, becoming exaggerated, fantastic, even surreal.
At times I do feel like a child in a giant jewellery box. I love keeping visual diaries because it's like a way that I can play with images. Basically, this piece is a hybrid between an 18th century jewellery pattern and 19th century natural history engravings of lichen. So I've been looking at the engravings of a 19th century zoologist, Ernst Haeckel. He was accused of attempting to improve upon nature, stylising nature. He believed that one of the underlying notions of, or one of the underlying rules of nature was symmetry, and as we know, nature is anything but symmetrical. I've called this piece Tree of Heaven. There is a botanical species known as a tree of heaven. So it was a tree that was introduced from China to the West in about 1750, and it was such a beautiful looking tree that it quickly became very popular and was planted all over the East Coast in the US. The tree grew quickly, and when it reached maturity, it was discovered that it actually has foul-smelling flowers and that it's more of a noxious weed. I think my work really plays with polar opposites, things like the sacred and the profane, in a similar sort of way with concepts of beauty and the grotesque. These are photographs of atomic detonations, which just have this uncanny appearance, similar to jellyfish, this sort of mantle form, and it's that terrifying beauty. Haeckel really was the first scientist to start studying jellyfish. When you look at Haeckel's studies of the disco medusae, they look like chandeliers. So for me, it wasn't too much of a leap to think of constructing one of Haeckel's drawings and using that as a sort of a blueprint to create a larger chandelier. It's kind of the embellishment and the misconceptions which are food for me to really work from. What we do as humans, we attempt to replicate nature or improve upon nature, which I guess links back in with Haeckel.